So yeah, let's just start talking about like I'll go. Alex, what can you give you a little background about yourself and your education, your background, why you
Sure.
wanted to be a lawyer?
So just to let you know a little bit about me, I am from New Orleans, born and raised. I went to Cabrini High School right there on the bayou by City Park. I went to Howard University, and then I came back here for Loyola Law School. I have been practicing personal injury for 6 years. I just really enjoy practicing personal injury. Um,
Yeah, what I guess going back to you have any lawyers in the family or anybody?
I actually don't. I am the first attorney in my family. My dad is an entrepreneur, my mom's a nurse. So at first, when I actually went to Howard, I was interested in being a physical therapist. And I took biology and I said, this is not for me. I decided to go into law, minor in English, and I majored in political science.
Nice. I did the same thing. I took one semester of biology at LSU and
Yeah.
thought that I probably shouldn't be doing this, and I needed to think of a different career path moving forward. And Scott and I were both police officers for a few years, and it got us a taste of a different side of the law on the criminal side. But then we realized we probably should go to law school and see what we can, do um, after law school and what we like. So, what I guess what drew you? Was there any specific like calling that you felt while you were at Howard or at
Mhm.
Cabrini? Did anyone like any mentors that kind of drew you to go to law school or?
Well, I did always look at judges. I enjoyed TV court, so I admired that, and I wanted to be in front of a camera at a point. So that kind of drew me into wanting to go to law school, being able to go into the courtroom, argue for clients, and that's kind of where that stemmed from.
Yeah, so I guess so. You came back. Howard's in Georgia, right?
Washington
Oh,
D.C. Yeah,
I thought how what is
that's
Brown?
like
Is it Spellman's in
Spellman
Atlanta?
and Morehouse. Yeah.
Yeah, it's Morehouse. That's
Mhm.
I have a lot of colleagues and friends that went to Morehouse.
Yeah.
What So you came back to Loyola here in
Yeah.
New Orleans. What why'd you want to come back home?
Well, actually, I had my son. I was pregnant my last year in at Howard, so I had my son my first year in law school at Loyola.
Wow,
Yes.
that's not easy.
No, it's not. I wanted to, stay in DC, but once I found out I was pregnant, I decided to come home. My family's here. I needed the support. His dad is actually from here. My son's dad is actually from here as
Mm.
well. My husband now, and we just decided it would be better to come back to our city.
So how was it you in your first semester with a child?
Well, so
And
I was pregnant and I had him in October, so right before finals.
wow,
Yes, and I had a C-section, so I had like a 2 week break, took the finals, and then it was Thanksgiving break. So I got at least a
yeah,
month and a half before returning for my second semester.
right. Had to do all over again.
Yes.
So what I guess when you had a lot of friends and they all did not have children and they all had different motivations to go on Bourbon Street and party and also study and do law school. What did having a child in law school teach you, or what did you learn from? Um,
So it was kind of difficult because I was coming back to the city. Of course, I was in DC for 4 years, and then I came back. I was pregnant, and I felt like I did kind of miss out in the beginning of my first year of law school. I didn't do the bar review,
right.
go out to the bars and everything, and I didn't network and connect as I could have. I had to wait kind of till my 2L year because I was focused on work and school, and then my baby.
Right.
So, but it gave me motivation. It pushed me. It
Yeah, I could imagine like having a child. Your priorities shift,
yeah.
and your priorities become your family and your education and how you're going to provide for your family in the future.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing and then you did well in law school, obviously.
Hmm.
So in law school, did you gravitate toward a specific area? Did you enjoy a specific subject the most?
I did. I enjoyed Professor Armstrong, so that kind of made me wanted to go into criminal law a little bit. I did practiced as a Rule 20 my 3L year.
What's a Rule 20?
It's a prosecutor, so you kind of go in as a practicing student attorney. You're not licensed, but you are able to work with the DA's office, work with the prosecutors. You go into court with the prosecutor.
Wow.
It was a very um, interesting,
Eye-opening.
experience. Yes, yes.
Did it make you not want to do criminal law?
Yes, it
Yeah.
did. It was interesting. I was going into a courtroom, and sometimes I felt like it would be a lot of people I may know, or like I just didn't feel connected in that environment. I didn't feel right being a prosecutor. I couldn't go that path.
No,
But I'm
man.
glad that I went through that experience to let me know that.
No, it makes sense. There's so many different areas and practices in the legal field, and you really got to find your own niche and where you fit in.
Yeah.
And so I guess you had that experience in the criminal sector. You didn't like it. You then graduate law school, and what was your first job outside of law school?
Outside of law school, I actually worked with one of my dad's friends, Robert Pearson. He had his own law firm on General de Gaulle on the West Bank where I grew up. So he practiced personal injury as well as family, and I did a little bit of that, mostly family. And that's when I got another, experience of something that I just wasn't too interested in, but it helped me learn how to handle clients, do intake, just get my foot in the door on,
Yeah.
just how to practice law, really.
Yeah, and we don't have to mention any other
Yeah,
your
yeah, yeah,
previous.
yeah, yeah.
So after you had that first taste of personal injury
hmm
and representing clients that were injured, did you enjoy that area of practice?
Yeah, that's where I started to pick up that I knew I wanted to, be on the plaintiff side.
Why did you want to like what motivated you to be on the plaintiff side?
Well, I just always grew up, seeing people struggle, just, regular people struggle against bigger corporations, bigger systems, insurance companies. And I I could see myself being the voice, being the bridge to that gap,
Yeah.
for people who otherwise wouldn't have said anything. And I'm able to have the opportunity to speak for other people and get them whatever they deserve.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a calling. It's not for everybody,
Yeah.
and because these are very difficult cases we handle with difficult injuries, and a person's life is usually changed for the worse, and you have to come in and be a voice of reason. Sometimes you're a therapist as well,
Yes.
and you have to be someone who's steadfast and also really skilled as a lawyer to help them navigate the complex civil justice system, and that's not easy to do. It's not for everybody,
No.
but I think it takes a special and unique lawyer to feel pride in that type of work, which I personally love. I worked at a defense firm for a long time, a really outstanding group of lawyers, but I just didn't feel the passion behind the work I was doing. And I feel like every lawyer should find that passion, whether that's on the criminal side, the defense side, the public sector, or the private sector representing plaintiffs and injured people. I find finding that passion is most important as a lawyer,
Right.
because we can search for a long time. Some people are still searching 30
Yeah.
years into their practice and they haven't found that passion. So it's nice to hear that you found that and you found your calling as a lawyer.
Yeah.
So as you transition into a few years in as a lawyer, you've worked as a lawyer for 6 years now,
Yes.
representing injured victims. What's the most important part of why you get up in the morning to practice law?
Um, I would say, when people are involved in car accidents, it could possibly be their worst day. And at the end of the day, I can flip the script and turn it into a big comeback, a major comeback for
Yeah.
that person. Work with that person, communicate with my client, and advocate for them when they're in a position that they feel like they have no one, they don't know what to do, and that just it makes it worth it. It makes
Yeah.
worth. I'm adding value. I'm doing something for someone.
Yeah, you find that like you're not just going through the motions for no reason. You feel like you're helping a client achieve something that wouldn't be possible without your help,
Right.
without a lawyer's help.
Right.
And that's something that in many other professions that doesn't exist,
Mm-hmm.
which is pretty unique to what we do. What do you find to be representing injured victims? What do you find to be the best, or what do you find to be the hardest thing about your job? Um,
Um, I would say, fighting against a bigger corporation that might look at my client as a number rather than a person, and trying to paint that story to them and, you know, advocate for my client to get them the maximum value,
because you probably form very you develop real relationships with your clients,
Right,
right?
right.
And that's important to do, right?
Right. It's not just a numbers game and getting medicals and the treatment. I, communicate with my client and make sure that we build a relationship so that I can know their entire story.
Yeah.
I may have to present this one day to a jury, opposing counsel, to an adjuster, and I would like for them to understand the entire story of my client, not just the property damage or the diagnosis of a medicals. I want to connect the dots on everything.
Yeah, they need to know who the person is and not just what the X's and O's are.
Right.
And I find sometimes that when we're arguing a case, that's all the other side cares about is the numbers and the injuries, and then how can we compensate this person, even though we don't know the person.
Right.
And our goal is to humanize the case and to show the other side, usually an insurance company, of who this person really is and what they went through.
Right.
And to do that, you got to be a really empathetic lawyer as well. But I agree, that's probably one of the hardest parts of this job is to show the other side, the insurance company, who they really are going up against and who this person is that was injured. And that's how, we got to become good storytellers and
Yeah.
very, yeah. Anything else that you feel called to talk about your kind of like legal, growing up and becoming a very skilled lawyer, like things you like to do, things you don't like to do, where I guess where you shine the most.
Well, I think that I build a very good relationship with my clients. I communicate with them. It's very important to me. I understand that this is someone's life and not just a case. So I make sure that my clients understand that, where they are within the case, what loops that we may have to get through, keeping them informed, staying up with their medical treatment, because, I understand that their schedule is messed up now. Their life is messed up. Their everyday, you know, hustle and bustle is
Hmm.
affected because of this accident. And I just try to make sure that I communicate with them so that they know that they're not alone.
Yeah, so it sounds like you like where you shine and where you enjoy and get the most out of your practice is having that strong relationship with clients.
Yeah.
And you find that as like very important in what we do, right?
Right.
Um, because the opposite is if a client isn't informed by their lawyer and they don't know what's going on with their case, then they're just left out in the weeds, and really it causes extra stress and hardship of not knowing how their case is progressing.
Right.
And at our firm, that's like the last thing we do. We want to make sure our clients are kept up to date, informed, treating, and making their appointments so they can get back to a normal life.
Right.
Um, what's been like one of the highlights? Do you have a special case that you can remember, or a special client that you feel like was one of the highlights of your career?
Well, what really comes to mind is that a lot of times, my clients are in a frustrating situation. So they're getting annoyed, they're getting heated up, and they have no idea what to do. And I always, listen, and I'm there for them. And usually I get a call back like 2 or 3 days later, and they just want to say, "Hey, Miss Walker, thank you for listening. Thank you for being there for me.
Yeah.
This is such a hard time, and I'm just so glad that I'm able to call you." And that's happened so many times. The first time it happened, I was just like, wow, this is what it's
Yeah.
about. And it just continues to happen.
Yeah, that
You
goes a
know,
long way. Is those little phone calls you get from a client or a text message a few weeks or a month later, just saying thank you because you changed my life for the
yeah,
better. That makes it this job work. 'Cause we have a tough job. We have tough cases with big injuries, with a lot of medical treatment, and it's not easy to emotionally, as a lawyer, take on that burden for the client. That our goal for them is just for them to get back to a spot where they were before the accident.
right,
And to do that, they really got to focus on their physical and mental health, and we got to take the burden of everything else.
yeah,
Um, yeah, I think I've been doing a lot of abuse cases where there's a lot of sexual abuse involved, and a lot of times I represent victims where the sexual abuse happened decades ago, and so they've been carrying that emotional burden for so long, and they still struggle with the physical and mental aspects of being abused as a child. And so it's been really rewarding, but it's been tough to navigate that journey with them and trying to get them. I know money will never undo what happened to them,
right,
but at least it shows that they're heard and their claims is justified, and that somebody on the other side acknowledges that something extremely terrible happened to them and that they're sorry for it. But yeah, those have been really rewarding cases for me, but they've been extremely difficult because you feel that emotional hurt from your clients, and you wish you could take that on yourself, but it's their journey that they got to navigate through the help of our law firm.
right.
Is there any specific case that you feel like you know that you feel really proud of?
Um,
You don't have to get into the details of
mhm.
it or name names, but
Yeah, so there was actually a slip and fall. A really good friend of mine, she slipped and fell at her apartment complex. It was about 2 or 3 months after she had her baby too.
wow,
And she had nowhere to go. She lived at that apartment complex. She worked at the apartment complex as well, and she had warned the complex about the it's like substance on the stairs that had just been building up over time, and she injured herself. So we were able to get her a nice recovery and change her life for the better.
wow. What? How did it make you feel when like a friend that you knew for a while came to you? Have y'all been friends for a while?
Yes, we've been friends for a while. It was so rewarding. I mean, for her to even just reach out to me and think of me to go through that experience with her,
Yeah.
it felt amazing.
And to have the skills, not as a friend but as a lawyer now, to help someone you probably knew for a long time,
Yes,
it's a pretty amazing feeling. But also, you're in a unique spot because of your education
right.
and your skill set as a lawyer, especially a personal injury lawyer. It's pretty neat to have a full circle moment like that.
Yes, it is.
Um, and so, what do you get a lot of phone calls from family and friends, or is that something that
I do. Another, actually, when I think of it, another rewarding, settlement that I had was with my dad. It was actually property damage, related to a hurricane, but it was my first year ever dealing with hurricane related property damage, and we were able to get him a nice settlement that went all the way through the Eastern District with,
wow,
yeah.
was
So,
that Ida?
yes, it was with
So
Ida.
you had like some significant Ida damage.
It was 24 properties.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So talk
So,
about that. Was it was the insurance company not paying him
So
appropriately, or
they weren't paying him properly. There was also bad faith damages. His original, settlement check was 6 months after they've already, said what the amount was. So we had to go through that whole battle. We got our own adjuster out there to, look at the home and see the difference between the estimates that the insurance company was trying to give him. Um, and it
yeah,
was a very rewarding experience. I sat there in the settlement conference with my dad, so that was
it's
nice.
pretty neat. I mean, your family, your dad probably was there your whole life and raised you and took care of you and paid for a lot of um, school and sports and clothes. But this is again a full circle moment where you could help your family out because of your education and your skill set,
Yes.
which is I think one of the most rewarding things we can do is when we can help a family member out
Yeah.
because they may not know a single lawyer out there other than me and you. And to have that skill set to help a family or to help your dad or help your mom go through something very difficult is something that, it's one of, I guess, the greatest gifts that we can give back to our family is to use your skill set that you've worked so hard for many, many years in college and law school, and then to help them out in a situation where they felt very helpless, I'm sure.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's a really cool story.
Thanks.
That's yeah, Ida. We didn't really do much Ida work, but the Ida damages. The stories coming out from Ida are really sad.
Yeah.
About how delayed the payments were. I mean,
Yes.
I think like they were what? You have 30 days after they evaluate the damage to tender an appropriate amount, and they wait 6 months to 12 months. You're just sitting there, and this property's rotting because you can't get the materials
Exactly.
to fix it, and you're stressed because that's your business or your home. But it takes a unique lawyer to step in that can recognize, okay, this is a dire situation. We need to act fast, and there's things you can do because you are a lawyer to pull those strings.
Yep.
That's awesome. This is great. I think this was really solid introduction. Do you want to get some specifics now?
Yeah,
I'll
these ones.
let me open it for you. That was really good.
Good job.
Okay.
That was
You feel a little nervous.
A little. Yeah.
Pretty good.
yeah.
Okay, good.
I really couldn't tell at all. That was
Oh,
that was really,
good.
that was really well done. A little water.
Yes.
Quench the thirst.
We'll roll into the topics. Yeah. All right. Good work. That was fun.
Yeah, that is. That's cool to experience.
Yeah. It's neat. It'll be edited really nicely.
Yeah. Sometimes when I'm speaking, I'm like, oh wait, was I not supposed to say that just now?
No.
But
Yeah. Yeah. No. It's it all edits really nicely when you have that kind of conversation.
Think so?
Kind of the top ones. I think me and Alex are going to focus on.
Okay.
Um,
The top in red.
Top in red,
All
yeah.
of them?
No, the top in red. I think those are the priority
2,
ones.
4, or 3, 4, 5.
Yeah, you just read them out to us. I can kind of get the conversation going. But we have like 10, 15 more minutes, probably.
Yeah, you're good. Yeah.
All right.
Whatever. Yeah, don't stress about time. You're
Okay.
good.
And if you have another,
Later.
okay. Yeah, if you want to like read them to me, and then I can kind of get a conversation rolling with Alex.
So can I recover compensation if I share fault or car accident?
Yeah. So, we have a lot of clients that come in. Sorry. We have clients that come in sometimes where they say, I think I might have been partially at fault for an accident, but the other side also caused the accident too. Is there an avenue in Louisiana with car accidents if a client shares a percentage of fault? Could they still recover damages?
Okay, so let's clear it up. A lot of people think that, if they have any type of fault in the accident, they cannot recover compensation. And that's just not true. Especially in Louisiana, we have the comparative fault system. And say, for example, you are at 20 to 40% at fault, you're still able to receive compensation. To give a specific example, say your damages are 100,000 and you were found 30% at fault. You're still able to receive that 70,000% compensation. So, yes, you are still able to recover even if you have some type of fault.
Yeah, so it makes sense if you do feel like you may have been partially at fault for the accident, still call an attorney,
Definitely.
because it's our job to determine the facts, investigate what happened, and also to make the arguments that even if you were at fault, it was not as much as you think, or also you may not have been at fault at all. And that's why it takes a unique skill set. We can hire experts. We can hire accident reconstruction experts to go in and pull black box data and to
Right.
see if you really were um, at fault for the accident or caused part of the accident, or maybe didn't even have any fault at all because
Right.
the data shows something different. Um, yeah, awesome. That's a good answer.
Cool. What's my car accident case
Yeah, so a lot of times when we have represent clients, they come in and they want to know at the outset, what is my claim worth? They were in a pretty serious accident and they're just getting started to treat, and they don't really know the outcome and what is ahead of them regarding their medical treatment. So, what would you tell a client if they come in asking what is their claim worth at the very beginning?
So I get that question a lot, how much is my car, how much is my claim worth? And I hate to say it, it really does just depend. It depends on, how hurt you are, how much treatment you had, if you had to miss any work, and how it affected your everyday life. So we have to take into account the medical bills, lost wages, pain and suffering, and maybe even future treatment. So
Yeah.
it really just depends on case by case, and
And what is your
sometimes.
role as a lawyer to determine like what the value of a case is worth?
So I'm here to, collect all the records, review all the medical treatment, and speak to my client and get the story on how it's affected them by their day-to-day life, and collect everything to present it to the insurance company.
Yeah, and we also look at past cases, right?
Right.
As not every case is going to be the same, but we can look to past cases in our databases that show what a similar injury may be worth,
Right.
and use that as a guidepost, but not as something that we have to follow.
Right.
And yeah, I think you're exactly right. It's every case is different, every injury is different, and every client's going to be different. So we take a very unique approach to every case and to every individual, and we have to, because if we treat all the clients the same, then we're not doing the best by each client.
Right.
And yeah, I totally agree with your answer. It's tough because a client walks in to the door with a pretty serious injury. They want to know, is it worth going down this process of making a claim, possibly filing a lawsuit? And I always tell them, like, your goal is to get better. Your only goal is to focus on treatment and getting back to normal. And our goal is to handle everything else.
Right.
And that's most important. Cool. Yep.
What damages are available to crash victims?
It's kind of just,
It's
yeah.
kind of big.
But this is specific. Okay, so if someone client walks in and they've been in a pretty serious auto accident, what would you say? And they ask you what kind of damages are available if I go down the path of filing a claim and potentially a lawsuit. What kind of type of damages would be available to a Louisiana car accident victim?
So I like to explain to my clients that it's not just car repairs. You have more available to you, rather than just getting your car repaired. There are, medical treatment, there's lost wages, of course, there's your property damage, and that's the economic side. And then there's also your pain and suffering, your emotional distress, how this has affected you, how it has affected your kids, your job, and things of those sorts. So
Yeah.
you can recover, your economic damages as well as your pain and suffering, your general damages.
Yeah, those general damages are the ones that we can't put a specific number on by looking to records or invoices,
Right.
because those are damages that a jury will have to just determine based off the facts of the case.
Right.
No one can put a value on your pain. No one can put a value on how a car accident affected you mentally and emotionally, but that's the job of a jury.
Exactly.
And our job as attorneys is to tell your story to a jury. And that's why we do what we do, because we have that skill set. And talk about a little bit, maybe, people understand pain, physical pain. People understand emotional pain, being sad that you can't do the things you used to do because of the car accident while you're treating and getting better. But can you describe what the part of general damages too is loss of enjoyment of life?
Right.
And that kind of gets overlooked sometimes, I feel like, but that's a huge part.
Mm-hmm.
Physical pain is tough, but having to miss out on certain things or having to miss out on life moments is I think equally as hard.
Definitely.
Can you describe what loss of enjoyment of life damages are in Louisiana?
So, there's pain and suffering, there's emotional distress, and it's unfortunate when my client can no longer, work out like they used to work out, or play with their kids, miss birthdays and things of that sort. That has to be looked into for your damages. It's not just your car repairs, it's what you lost and what it takes to make you whole again.
Yeah, and a jury needs to know that there may be times where you were so hurt that you couldn't pick up your child,
Exactly.
or you couldn't go to the baseball game or coach his soccer game because you physically couldn't run, and you knew how much pain you'd be in if you did. And that's, I think, sometimes even more traumatic than physical pain.
Right.
Not being there for your family like you used to, not being there for your spouse like you used to, or your mom and dad. Um, I find that kind of gets overlooked sometimes, but not by our firm. I'm very focused and aware of that specific type of damages, because I find family to be very important.
Right.
And having that time and making sure you show up like you've shown up before prior to the accident.
Yeah.
Going to family, like, can you describe a little bit about your family? I know
Yeah.
I forgot to talk to you about that. Can you talk about who your family is and kids, husband
Yeah.
and all that?
So I have my husband Calvin, and we have two children, Autumn and Calvin Jr. A son, my 10-year-old son. He's into football and basketball, so we are traveling for AAU and sports all the time. And then she's turning 2 actually Wednesday. So
Nice. Happy
I have
birthday.
she's like a little pit bull, but
She holds her own.
Yes.
And being a lawyer now in your family is getting bigger and growing.
Yes.
How do you balance being a lawyer and a mom and a wife?
I make sure that I make time for everything. I take time for myself, first self-care, and then I, arrange my time for my work. Make sure that I work in time increments, so I dedicate time to working with clients, dedicate time to responding to emails and such like that. And then when I get home, I make sure that I'm present and there for my family. I enjoy having a work-life balance. It's very peaceful.
Yeah, I'm sure your daughter and your son will watch you grow up as a working mom, but it's a lot of respect they're going to have for you as we don't have an easy job.
Right.
Our hours are all over the place. We're not a 9 to 5 type of profession, but there's going to be times where we get pulled away from our family, but we got to remember to make up for that time when we are home and being present with them, because they will remember how hard you work, and
Yes.
also they will remember us showing up for them too. But they also will remember being a lawyer comes with perks, and you can make a good living doing it, and you provide a different lifestyle than for them. Yeah. No,
And I
think
like that my son says he wants to be a lawyer. So I'm like,
Yeah.
we're doing something here.
no, he sees you, working hard, and he sees the profession, and that that you live in, but also he sees the life that you've given him too, and that's really important to hold on to. My little 2-year-old wants to. He's almost 3, but he wants to be. He did want to be a firefighter, and then now he wants to be a baseball player. So I don't know if the lawyer path is. He's just a little all over the place at the moment.
Yeah.
He's a little goofy guy. So, yeah. So you want to do the next one?
Yeah. What should I do after a car accident?
Okay. Yeah. You were going to talk about this one. So, a client comes to you and they were just in a car accident. It's brand new. It's fresh. And they're in New Orleans and they call you and they don't know what to do. They're panicking a little bit. What would you recommend to a client who just got in a car accident?
So if someone reached out to me after they just got in a car accident, I would immediately let them know, scan your body, make sure that you don't have any injuries, make sure that you're in a safe zone out of any, immediate danger, and tell them to immediately call the police.
Why is it important to call the police when you're in an accident?
Because they can document everything. You're able to, get your side of the story. They're able to put it into the report, and you have all your information and your evidence. And most of the time they wear their body cam, so all of that is being recorded.
Yeah.
And then as you wait for the police, if it's possible, get out, get some pictures. Get pictures of the vehicle. Of course, get pictures of the other vehicle. Try to get pictures of the scene. If there's any visible injuries, maybe get pictures of those. And if, the other driver is willing to cooperate, also try to get their information, get their driver's license, insurance information, and, of course, contact us, contact your attorney. And
yeah, I think the most important thing, first and foremost, is make sure you're safe and get to a safe space, but also documentation is key.
Yes.
You can never take too many pictures or too many videos because we can use that down the road. If you give us fresh pictures from the accident when you're still on scene, that's one of the most important things. Also, contact with the police and make sure you give a good statement.
Yeah.
And you, good answer, yeah. What do we think? We don't have to do all of them, but yeah, let's maybe a few more.
What about y'all kind of did step section?
Yeah, those were. Maybe there's more New Orleans ones because she's in New Orleans.
What if you rephrase this one instead of Baton Rouge? You would say, how much does it cost to hire a personal injury attorney?
Yeah, so we get a lot of questions from clients when they call us concerned about a lawyer might be too expensive because they see how much a lawyer charges hourly. But what would you tell a client in New Orleans how much you cost as a lawyer to represent them in a car accident?
Well, what a lot of people don't know is that you don't have any upfront costs with a personal injury attorney. We work on a contingency fee, so we don't get paid unless you win. So once your case settles, we get a percentage, usually 33.3 to 40%, depending on the stage of your case. Right. So that it's actually beneficial for the client because it allows them time to worry about their treatment, worry about healing while we handle the fight, and worry about the compensation at the end.
Yeah, I call it kind of a risk-free opportunity to pursue your claim because there is no risk when you hire a law firm because of that contingency fee, and our fees are always contingent on the outcome of the case.
Yeah.
And we make sure to tell clients that even if we unfortunately don't get you a good result, you owe us nothing.
Yeah.
If we some reason, well, I don't want to say it, yeah, but don't win a case, but yeah, when a client comes in, all of the bills and expenses are paid for by our firm, and you don't owe us anything until the very end of the case. And I find that, like you just said, that takes a lot of stress off of a client, so they can't just focus on their medicals and getting back to a place where they were before the accident.
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. We can do like one more. Whatever you think's good.
Why should I hire New Orleans personal injury attorney? It's kind of just like.
Well, why should I hire you? Yeah, let's do that one.
Yeah.
So, our clients when they hire us, they hire not the firm, but they also hire the individual lawyer too. Why would a client want to hire you, Alex, over another attorney in New Orleans?
Well, one, I'm born and raised in New Orleans, so I'm actually from here. I know the city, I know the streets, and I'm able to communicate with my clients. I'm able to, relate to a lot of things, and I'm able to, explain to you the legal process so that you can understand it and you can feel included in the entire process. I'll advocate for you, make sure that your treatment is on track. If you have any other pains, make sure that we get you in the right direction, and then go against these big corporations, these insurance companies, and let your voice be heard.
Yeah, and you're not intimidated by big insurance companies or corporations. I mean, you do that every day, right?
Right, absolutely not.
Yeah, they. I think you being from New Orleans is very unique. Having that knowledge of the people and the culture and how these people operate in New Orleans. New Orleans is a very unique city.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful city. It's amazing. It's got its problems, just like any other city.
Mhm.
But I think the positives outweigh the negatives in New Orleans. And I think you being from New Orleans and knowing the culture and knowing how to communicate with the citizens of New Orleans really is a unique skill set you have.
Yeah.
And you literally grew up. You left for what 4 years and then came back. So you've only been gone for 4.
Mm-hmm.
You've been out of New Orleans for 4 years, but looks like you're never going to leave again. So
Right.
yeah, that's perfect. Do you find anything else that like you have that is unique? I mean, we all share similar
Mm-hmm.
skill sets as lawyers. We like to argue. We are good fact finders, but do you find like you, Alex Walker, has a very unique skill set that sets you apart?
I think that, you know, I'm able to negotiate really well. I'm able to get the other side to understand, empathize with my client rather than you be ignored or be dismissed or, just swept under the rug. I'm very good at being able to catch, the opposing counsel or anyone's side ear and drill into them and advocate for them.
Yeah, that's negotiation is not for everyone. It's tough. Um, you got to have a thick skin to negotiate because there's gonna be days, months, hours where you make no progress, but you keep advocating and you keep being resilient and you break through eventually.
Yes.
I find my skill set that I love that about myself is attention to detail.
Mm.
And Kelly, our law partner, always says the devil's in the details in personal injury, and he's right. Where if you just look at the 10,000-foot view of a case, you're never going to do your client justice. You have to look at every minute detail, every specific line in a medical record, every bit of fact that could help or hurt your client, and know it inside and out. And I find that having that skill set of making sure no stone is making sure that no what I'm trying to say, like no rock is making sure that no
stone is unturned.
Yeah, making sure no stone is unturned and no detail is ever missed is so crucial for a lawyer and what we do in personal injury.
Yeah.
Fine tooth comb, yes. You have anything else you want to talk about? Like, this is like an hour. I mean, we got like 30 videos from this.
Yeah.
And we talked really smoothly. So, oops.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it wasn't a lot of like. It was good.
Awesome.
Cool. You got anything you want to talk? I mean, like, this time to shine. You're in front of a camera. Do you have anything you want to say? Talk about? I don't know, anything that like get you going. I want
to annoy you that like people do on roads or something.
I might talk a little bit about the sexual abuse stuff I do because I haven't done that yet. I know I mentioned it early, but I'm getting a lot more busy with that. So, so recently, our legislature passed laws that extend the prescription window in Louisiana, which we statute of limitations in other states for sexual abuse victims that are now older than 18 to June of 2027. So I've been representing a lot of abuse victims that are in their 40s and 50s that were abused as children, and helping them navigate their civil claim. And it's been extremely rewarding, but also tough hearing these very traumatic, horrific stories of how children were abused by clergy, by employees of schools, or even by family members, but also helping them navigate and helping them get some compensation for what they went through as a child. No child should ever suffer sexual abuse. And in Louisiana, I've seen far too many children that have gone through schools and gone through churches that were sexually abused by very prominent members of those organizations. And it is a passion of mine to help these adults that were abused as children to at least be heard and be seen and be compensated for what they went through. No money would ever change what these victims have gone through, but it can help. And that's all we can do at this point is help them get to a life where they can close the chapter of being abused and move forward. So yeah, it's been, I'm trying to think of anything else with, that's it. Yeah. Just want to highlight the prescription window and all that.
Yeah.
So yeah, we get a lot of calls from people. The majority of the cases we represent now are abuse victims that were abused in the church setting. Unfortunately, back in the 70s and 80s, there were a lot of clergy that were put into high level positions that took advantage and abused children. And thankfully, our legislature and our governor saw the need to address this issue, even though this abuse happened so long ago.
Right.
A lot of psychological studies show that if you were abused as a child, that you don't really deal with that emotional trauma and physical trauma until much later in life, in your 40s and 50s. And we see that now. A lot of these adults are coming forward when they were abused as an 8 or 9 or 10-year-old, and they're just now starting to deal with that effects of sexual abuse. And so, they're very delicate cases. They're very challenging cases to navigate, because you're not dealing with a lot of physical injury. You're dealing with majority emotional and mental pain. But the abuse also led to a lot of hardships in my client's life. And so you have to deal with, if they never were abused, they would have never had these certain types of hardships like addiction and unable to complete school and marital problems and relationship problems. So, they're very special and people, and they're amazing because they're survivors of sexual abuse.
Yeah.
And that's just a testament to them being here and pursuing a claim and having the strength to speak up to make sure this doesn't happen again. And that's the biggest thing we're doing right now is we are trying to change the mold of, we want to let corporations and businesses know that you should have better hiring practices, and you should never stand to harbor or not disclose if you see any type of abuse, emotional, physical, sexual, going on in your organization.